All right, everyone. We are back with a new episode of With Love Soleil, and I am so excited for this episode because I have one of the wonderful, beautiful goddesses of this earth plane here with me today, Sarah, who is a healer, a mystic, a mother, emotional release practitioner, Akashic record reader, all of the things, totally in her spiritual gifts bag. Sarah, super happy to have you on the show. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here too.
Amazing. As I was sort of just looking into your work and what you do, you have so many of your spiritual gifts at play. So, given the context of what you do, and all of that, obviously also incorporated into just who you are, where did your spiritual gifts come into play in your life? Were they always present? Was it always something that you were open to, or has it been something you build out into?
Yeah, so I think they've been present to some degree my entire life, but growing up within like the Christian paradigm, I definitely suppressed them to some degree, especially as like a younger adult. And newly married, kind of marrying into stricter versions of Christianity than I had grown up with, definitely caused like some suppression for a few years. But my grandma was a true mystic. She was also a Lutheran, and my dad's a Lutheran pastor, but very like liberal and open minded. And so I actually was pretty given a lot of leeway as a kid to explore spirituality and spiritual topics. My grandma had all of Edgar Casey's books, and I remember reading about the sleeping prophet when I was like 9 or 10 and being very interested in figuring out how that fit into my life and what my role here as a spiritual person would be.
That's amazing. I love that. So you started in Christianity. And so what is your relationship to Christianity now?
Definitely, I would say that I am not a typical evangelical Christian anymore. In fact, I would go so far as to say I speak very boldly against the church and what church has become. I would say, like, I leave room for Christian mysticism, and there is an element of that probably within my own beliefs and practice. But as far as identifying as a Christian, absolutely not, because the Jesus that they're worshiping is actually a caricature of the true spirit of Christ. His name was never Jesus. And I really think that that was intentional because they couldn't actually defame the name of the real human who became the Christ. So
Mhm.
I have a lot of strong feelings about it and about the harm that has been done in the name of the church to lots of women and children.
Yeah, isn't it interesting, because of course, I mean, I love to believe that all religions came from a authentic, pure, holy space,
Mhm.
and a true, just willingness and desire to direct people back to God. But it is
Yes.
interesting how much has been done in the name of religion that seems so opposite of that direction, right? And it's so
Yes.
I think of this all the time. And I mean, you said it sounds like on your end, you believe there's some even orchestration around being a little bit dishonest,
Yes.
that things were written dishonestly to confuse the minds of the people who are trying to follow this path, which it's hard, we'll never know, of course. And it's even so disheartening to even think that of, because
Mhm.
there's so much power to just organize godliness, right? But unfortunately, when you put it in too small of a box, then God becomes someone who can't, even a person who can't fit in this very small box that you're trying to put
Yes.
them in. So yeah, I get it, and it is unfortunate. And I recognize and respect your background in that. And I love that you've found your path. I think it's so important. And I hope that you can at least, honor that as your starting point. Cause it's, we all have
Mhm.
our framework, right. Of how we arrive at where we are now. And on some level, it's all totally purposeful, right? It's all part of
Right.
your own design of how you came from where you've come from and who you are now and why you stand, how you stand and what you believe in. So yeah, I love that. And so with your spiritual gifts kind of blooming, was that something that people in your life were like open to, your family is open to? Is that something that is talked about and okay, or is it kind of shunned, or like what's your relationship to your family around those kinds of things?
Definitely my dad in particular is very supportive. In fact, I probably run about half of my sessions from his house around the corner so that my kids don't have to be quiet in the evenings and on the weekends. So my
Yeah.
dad in particular of like my family of origin is super supportive. My children's father is very supportive. The kids are very interested specifically in emotional release. And how that is beneficial for people and even for animals because they've seen like a direct change in our cat's behavior when I've done our emotional release for our cat. So I would say I have a lot of support. I deconstructed Christianity very, very quickly. And that doing that, going through that process, really enabled me to step into like what's always been my calling.
Totally. Yeah, that's amazing. That's amazing. And you're touching on motherhood here. How has that? I'm always so curious, as someone who's not a mother yet, how motherhood transforms your gifts and transforms you even more so into this version of you. I always see motherhood as such an initiation into real true divinity and embodiment and all of the things, and having to be now a mother for these responsible for these small people. How has that played a role in your becoming?
Motherhood is very much an initiation. It is probably the strongest, most powerful initiation post or pre awakening that I've gone through 4 times. And
What kids? Oh,
yeah, 4. So my kids are 18, 14, 12, and almost 10.
wow.
And um, yes, so motherhood is a very slow series of death and rebirth into a more whole, full version of the self and of the self as a divine, sacred woman. So I speak a lot on my social media platforms about the death rebirth cycle and going through the fire of initiation and the descent. So my handle, Sarah Descending, is very much about the sacred descent
Yes.
of the divine feminine into matter and into consciousness. And so I take being a woman very seriously because the womb is the strongest magnet and strongest portal in this realm because it is the only thing that can pull souls in to this world. And it's so definitely very involved in the sacredness of motherhood while the reality of it. And pregnancy is hard. And pregnancy is giving up your original body again and again and again and again and having it build people. And while women have been doing it for millennia, that doesn't mean that that we have to pretend it's easy or hush up
Oh,
the
yeah.
newly pregnant person who has realized, oh my gosh, this is a wild process that's happening to me that I'm going through.
Yeah.
So yeah, becoming mother. Um, there's always a new stage of becoming mother as the kids get older. So you go from baby to toddler to grade school to middle school to high school. And now my son is graduating in a couple of weeks.
Wow.
And it's like about a year and a half ago, I realized, oh my goodness, I have raised an actual man. I have this teenager who behaves more as a fully embodied adult man than half of the men I've ever met in my life. And just to kind of see that process play out and to know that while it's not all to my credit, I had that I really did step up and fulfill this role in his sacred path too. So it's definitely very cool.
No, I mean, as someone who had a absolutely divine mother, I can attest to the fact that I mean, maybe I'm biased, but to me, there is no higher gift than having a mother who just can, be a guide on your path in this way and let you find yourself and, embody. And I love that word. And I love that I think where both of our work really aligns and something that we really share and talk about and is important is embodiment, bringing
Yes.
it back down, right? Because I think that so a lot of spirituality is kind of an upper region, right? We're in the 5D, like doing 5D things, yeah. Which is great and it's amazing. And I think that's where it starts to become really mystical and magical. And so people want to stay there because it feels so good and it's like constantly mind blowing. But we're in a human body for a reason, right? We're having a human experience for a reason. And so the work then is to figure out what that reason is. And while you do, to bring all of that magic back down into being able to just be present in the moment and be in your physical reality and exist in a way that's helpful to yourself and other people. So, you know, I think yeah, you know, the spiritual community in general, it's an interesting pot in there. You know, sometimes I just try to align more with even self-mastery than spirituality, because I think they go so hand in hand, and spirituality is just so now kind of, it's, you know, it's an interesting word now, and there's a lot of very different angles to it, of course. And you know, to me, the core of spirituality is self-mastery, right? It's the back down of the self, the evolution of the self. That's the point. What we're here to do. That's the spiritual path. And so to master your human experience and the multidimensional ways that that's possible. And so I love coming at it from that angle, while also sort of maintaining the understanding that there is, though, a divine design, and you know, perhaps we're on some sort of destiny timeline, and therefore there's much larger factors at play than us just being these humans mastering ourselves, right? But I love that your work focuses on that. And it's in your handle, right, Sarah Descending, like you really prioritize the conversation around embodiment and integration of all of these wonderful mystical things, but you still have to be a human. And I think what happens is, with these spiritual people, I mean, I know we've just seen the Dalai Lama get a little caught up in this, that there's some not good things that happen in the humanness for these holy people who walk the earth, and they're still, like, as a person, you know, pedophile. I mean, it's insane how we overlooked so many problems in these spiritual people who have such these big names, and yet as human beings, they're not even integrated in any of the things that they talk about. So it's like, what good is it, you know?
Yep. Embodiment is a huge part of my practice and my offerings, very much so. And I agree with you. Like, we are here. One, I believe we chose to be here. And I reject all notion of Earth being a prison planet or being hell. We opted to come here. We wanted this experience. We wanted to be in this type of a physical body. Like, I believe there's always a body. I've had lots of messaging come in about this, but this physical body is extremely special and unique, and we wanted this experience. And it's so important to be able to bring it into the body, to come into the body, and to know what needs to be done with the body to have a better experience. And so much of the time, if you can deal with the body first, consciousness can expand.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And so I assume that's kind of your emotional release work. I honestly, I know it from various different angles, but just as its own kind of standalone concept, what does that look like? And then how does that play into kind of what you're describing here?
Okay, yeah. So my emotional release techniques were initially based on Dr. Bradley Nelson's The Emotion Code, but I varied the modality quite a bit, and I've brought quite a bit of additional things into it. So I don't call it the Emotion Code, and I am not certified in his modality. I want to be clear, because that's a registered trademark. And while it was initially super, super helpful to me, there is not any room for client involvement in that, as the way it's originally written. So I brought in a lot more client involvement, because basically, essentially what we do is we connect with the body as its own innate consciousness, and with the person's vast self or high self. I like to say vast self. My teacher, Nobu, uses that term to kind of depolarize, like, high and low, as if high is good and low is bad. So the term vast or vaster self is something that's been really helpful for me, that I encourage other people to use, because it's not like, it kind of makes you think that the floatiness is good, when that's not the case. But so what we do is we're connected with the body and with the higher self, or the vaster self, and we talk to the body about what is stuck and where. So everything that has happened to us, good or bad, is held within the body. The energetic signature and remembrance of that is held within the body. If there is something negative or traumatic that happens, especially as children, and it's not able to be felt and processed then the body will embed in usually one of the organs, but anything can cause anything. So just because the liver is known for being the place that anger is held does not mean that your liver hurts. It means that that anger is trapped as an energetic substance, and a lot of times I perceive it as kind of a like a tangled ball or
Mhm.
web of but a mixed up yucky web or tangled ball about the size of a melon. And it can cause anything. It can cause any sort of physical pain, any
Wow.
emotional trauma. I see
Yeah.
lots of people who have no pain physically, but they're in complete like mental anguish. And when we find and identify trapped emotions that we're able to release, life can immediately improve. But as with anything, in order for it to work, the client must believe that they can feel better. They must
Totally.
believe that there is hope for improvement.
Yeah.
So we go through just like a way to release it. There's some elements of like traditional Chinese medicine that are used. And then we run a magnet or the hand because we are also magnetic down the
Yeah.
meridian of
Mhm.
3 times or 10 times, depending on the intensity of the trapped emotion. And are able to release a lot. Like I've released, instead of just balls of energy, I have now released 3 times a trapped emotion that had consumed. Like what I released was a shadow man. So it had
Mhm.
become such an intensely large
Wow.
and embodied egregore, so
Yeah.
thought form that had come fully into the body. That what left was the size of the man or the woman.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's a
Yeah.
great technique.
Yeah, that's amazing. And it's literally the practice and art of making room in your own beingness for you to exist, right? Because we're at war with the parts of us that are not us, the shadow parts, the deep. I mean, and, not even shadow is not us. That's probably not correct way to say it. But these, shadow aspects that are not meant to
Yeah.
remain in our bodies, we're
Right.
really carrying trauma and
Mhm.
processed
Yeah.
everything in our experience. And it's keeping it's holding all the space in our bodies wherein we ourselves can't, our spirit can't exist because we're
Yes.
blocked by these, trapped. I don't even know what do you call? Is there like a name specifically that you
I
call it?
just think, yeah, trapped emotions, trapped
Yeah,
feelings, but there is like an energetic substance to it. And the reason, like, so you're not expelling the shadow, like your own shadow
yeah,
aspects.
right,
What we are removing is like trapped emotions that are interfering with the flow and function of your physical and energetic bodies. And
totally.
we always invite, when we release something, we invite something beneficial into
Yeah,
the client's body and biofield. You're not inviting anything to get stuck. But
yeah,
I had found that like the original method that I don't adhere to didn't do that. And I was seeing that clients were feeling like a little empty and a little raw and a little tender because
absolutely.
even if what you're releasing wasn't serving you, if it's been there for a long time, you have gotten
Oh, yeah,
used to carrying that. And so people would
absolutely.
feel like a little bit open. So we'll call in something beneficial like joy or clarity
Yeah,
to not be stuck, but to come like help support the process of
yeah,
integration and
yeah.
settling into the new way of things.
Yeah, yeah, that's really powerful and so true that it is like when you live with these things for your whole life and then suddenly it's gone. I mean, there's a grieving process that has to happen,
Yeah.
right? Because you talk about a death and a rebirth. This is like
Right.
the science of that. And then it's like you have so much lightness and so much space, you don't even occupy the same reality anymore, right? So it can be quite unnerving for people. I know, both of us are in this space as practitioners of this, and I think having a guide is really important. Having a healer in this way is so important because it helps you kind of ground into these major shifts that are happening, to have someone sort of witnessing it with you and on
Yes.
the path with you. But I totally agree and love that you found it important that the person getting the work is fully active with it, because the
Yes.
idea, and this is sort of goes under the full idea of awakening, right? You can't just go and awaken someone. You can't tap them on the shoulder and be like, hey, time to wake up, and they're going to wake up, right? It's not going to happen. They have to at least be open to it. They have to have, there's a whole process of awakening that happens. And even in works, like even in this work, right? before they've even committed to working with you, there's been an energetic process to happen that has A, led them to you, B, begun the unwinding and unclenching of them to these aspects of themselves that are starting to die off and ready to go. And so there's already been the buildup, and then they magically find you, or whatever coincidences happen that bring you together, and they're open to this. So there's a, they're internally preparing themselves, even subconsciously, before they come to us, right? Once they've come to us, then the openness is there, they're available to it. And they're obviously saying, I'm ready for this work to happen. But there has to be that, openness on their end. There's no possible way. I mean, I don't like to say no possible way, but the truth is it's much more beneficial for the work itself if both parties are, actively involved. You can't just heal people without them. I mean, they're the ones healing and actually are their own healers. We're just the space holders for that transformation to take place.
Right. I always say I'm facilitating it, but I'm not the one healing them. They are choosing to heal themselves or to integrate or whatever word they prefer.
Definitely. Yeah. And that's an interesting thing, because as a healer, obviously we do have a special gift, and I like to honor our gifts, and I like to recognize that our gifts as a healer even come from our own work that we've done on ourselves, right? That you become even a better, more powerful healer as you clear your channel, as you clear these things out. So your spirit is even more powerful. So your container is even more full for people to come into, right? So I always try to find a way to, I mean, even calling myself a healer, sometimes I'm like, it just seems, but then how do I also honor my own gifts, right? And how do we maintain the truth that we have put in work to become who we are and to do what we do? And so, just to recognize our place in that, like, yes, we ourselves are not healing this person, but also our container is what is facilitating this process. So, our involvement is necessary in this agreement for this to happen.
I love that distinction.
Give your flowers back too, because I get it, and it's deep, powerful work, and it. The power of it really resides in our own work on ourselves, and I think that's where that we have to know as healers, our work starts with us. It really starts with us, and you can't offer anybody anything you haven't offered to yourself and haven't lived out experientially. And that's why this work is so important, to keep that baseline level of your own work, your own spiritual practices, all the ways that you maintain your own integration and continue your own evolution, so that you can, be open to helping more people.
Absolutely. Oh yeah, I had to go through so much transformation in order to be able to offer the container and the space holding that I do, and to kind of call in and gather the power that's needed to facilitate this. I knew that I was going this way for a long time, and about a year ago I went through the strongest, most painful alchemical process of my life, and it was worth every second of it. And it definitely helped form me into the woman that can now do what I'm doing as effectively as I'm doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And it is, and I think that's why, it's like, people will ask, could anybody do this work? Could anybody? And in some way, we all are space holding for each other, right? Whether you're totally unaware of that at all or not, in some way, we're all facilitating the evolution and awakening of one another in our own energetic premises. But I think doing that intentionally and actively and in a way that comes from your having done it for yourself is just we're having a different conversation than those who are, maybe not quite as active with it or aren't, in the same spaces. But, this is why, and circling back to the idea of shadow, because I wanted to correct myself in using that. When you said that, the energy left his body, I saw it as a shadow, so that term came, but I wanted to be very clear here, shadow work in itself and, understanding the shadow self is never to delete the shadow self, right? It's only ever to integrate the shadow self with the light self. And that's the fully formed, fully integrated human being, right? That's what we're really working on doing. We're not here. And I love to release any negativity we have around shadow self. It sounds like a little scary. And you talk about shadow work and still very few people even know what that is. But, we all have what you'd consider, and again, to remove the stigma of high and low, but lower vibrational aspects of ourselves, right? That's the shadow
Mhm.
self. And this is not bad or good. It's just that we have higher vibrational, literally it's science, right? High vibrational aspects and low vibrational aspects. And so can you exist in all of it and allow yourself the grace to be every aspect of yourself, and understand that there are parts that maybe are going to rub people differently or shift, like whatever that is. And it's still a gift though, right? It's just that maybe it's not the light, happy, everybody loves you for it type aspects of you. It might be the things that kind of rub people, or when you're catalyzing or triggering people and they want to call you the bad guy, when in fact you're actually offering them into their shadow. If they're aware enough, they'll go there, and if not, they'll make you the bad guy. And either way, you've still offered them the opportunity to go there.
Yeah. I realized a few years ago that I've been triggering and catalyzing people my entire life, long before I knew that that was like my part of my role here. But it's
Yeah.
very much been my experience.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so when you think of shadow work and shadow self, how do you see it, and how do you relate to it in your own life and otherwise?
Yeah, so shadow work is very crucial. I don't know that I would call it shadow work, but definitely like some kind of an integration. I bring into, so Bill Plotkin, the author Bill Plotkin, amazing, done a lot of amazing descent type work. Soulcraft is one of his books. He's written several. He talks about how the ego, because people talk about killing the ego, and that's something that I always have to like have a word about, because ego actually just means I, and Plotkin defines it as the I of ordinary reality. So I kind of like pull from ego and shadow work as being terms that are really, really polarizing for people. And a lot of people seem like they don't understand what the actual meaning of the word is. Like if you kill your ego, there's no you,
Right.
at least in this realm. Like
Yeah.
there's no individual you.
Mhm.
But shadow work is crucial. I sometimes like I call it depth work or dark work or
Mhm.
soulcraft or sometimes the underworld journey. To me, like those all inhabit or like bring forth elements of what I think the real shadow work definition would be.
Mhm.
And really, it is about integration, and it's about taking it like radical accountability for yourself as well, which is identifying the aspects of you that need work, and taking honestly radical accountability for your own bullshit, because we all have
100%.
it.
Yeah.
We all have it. And it's crucial. Like it's crucial for me to continue to look at this within myself so that I can come as a practitioner
Yeah.
and offer what I'm able to offer, but also just as a person in general, as a mom, as a friend, as a sister, as somebody that talks to lots of people online. Yeah, so I think like shadow work really is like integrating and taking radical self accountability would
Yeah.
kind of be my
Yeah. I totally agree with that. And, and kudos to you. I know, and I've seen in your work that you have done some work around trying to find new ways to describe these things, because we do have these words, but you're right that even shadow work is all, language is always going to be imperfect when we're trying to
yeah,
encapsulate high level, super vast concepts
yeah,
that we hardly can put into a term,
yeah,
to be honest. But obviously, and I think that our cohort of, I would say specifically goddesses, but also just those of us who are kind of on our wave of awakening and shifting and changing a new paradigm action, are bringing in new language. But I think that it is probably our shared mission to we also humanize it, right? It doesn't have to be these
yes,
crazy, fluffy, astral, terminologies.
yes,
Like, how can we make it so that a kindergartner can understand it, right? We want to be able to just normalize terms that anybody can talk about in a real way, and it makes sense for everybody. You don't have to be any higher or holier than anybody to just be able to talk about these kinds of things. And so I love that you've reframed that. In fact, one of the terms I've heard you do this with before also is the matrix.
yes.
I know you're not a fan of that term, and I myself, since I heard you say that, I kind of have thought it, because I do use it. Just as to me, it's for me just the best way to encapsulate kind of that entity of
Yes,
information.
yes,
There's plenty of other words for it, but I love that you challenge things and bring new language in, because I think it is really important, because not all words resonate with everybody. Even God, the word God, right? Talk about a loaded word. To me, it's, if for me personally, it feels like the best word to encapsulate the highest possible consciousness of all, and that's how I see God. But of course, to anybody else, God has very different meanings, right? So if we can introduce new language, it sort of releases some of the, weight or baggage that these words that now exist have, and we can bring new kind of lighter conversation around them, because it doesn't, God can be such a trigger word. Even say God sometimes, like, and especially because where I think of God, right, is just because I don't want to say like the vast most high consciousness of all, or it's easier to just use a word, but to other people, man, it's a white man on a throne. So it's different.
And they've been hurt by that term, or been hurt by people who are like worshiping that term.
Totally. And I
Yeah.
get
So
it,
maybe,
right? Yeah.
yeah,
I get it. Except that also, and in all things, that if you're hurt by a word, then that's your work, right? That's the other piece of it.
exactly.
While I'm understanding and empathetic, I work with this work, but I think the key here in all ways, and what society is really needing and lacking, is just people who recognize if you're triggered by something, baby, that's your work. That's where you have work to do. It's not the person who's triggered you. That's like this, maybe, and maybe not that they're necessarily good, because maybe they're not a great person, but all in all, what's coming up is yours to heal and clear. And when you do, you become so much more powerful. But if you want to just use it to get mad at somebody else and totally deny the fact that you've just exposed yourself to yourself, then this is, and this is the whole comment section of social media, right? In general.
Exactly. Yes. I definitely feel like what you were saying about trying to like bring these topics into like regular language is very important. So a lot of what's coming forth is depth esoterica, and I feel like part of my mission has been to help not dilute, because it is the new age that winds up diluting and then diverting very important concepts and deeply layered and nuanced topics, but to explain in regular language so that many people can understand what this deep concept means. Yeah, that's very important. I feel like it's a big part of what I'm called to do.
Yeah, totally resonate with you on that. And it's so important, right? I think that's going to be such a major shift when close to the majority of people can at least have some language to kind of understand what we're saying. Because, there's just so much reserved kind of right now for the spiritual community, so to speak. And even that, like, you can see I have resistance to even that, because it's even that in of itself is kind of its own beast now. But for those people who I guess are kind of actively on the path, right? We can speak a certain language that most of us, and I think because a part of it, though, for being honest, is that the language comes from experience. So
it does.
To experience it, you kind of live it out, and then you can bring forward your way of talking about it in a way that's just real and normal and human conversation. So you find the words that fit your experience, and then when you say them, other people are like, oh my gosh, those are the words I've been looking for what I'm going through. And so we call forward our own experience, and then other people relate to it. But it is interesting to live in this way and speak this language. And, I know for me, and even in our line of work, right? Somebody off the street asks you what you do. You got to kind of like, okay, where am I going to answer this? You do kind of answer depending. I mean, to you, I would straight up tell you I'm an energy worker. Like very easy, no problem. I wouldn't hesitate. But you got to know your audience. You got to know who you're talking to. And, if we're going to be guiding people into this space, and especially those who maybe have no context for it at all, then how do you answer, so I'm going to turn the mic over to you. If somebody off the street who probably has no real understanding of any of this, if they ask you, what do you do? What is your response?
I would probably say energy worker or energy magic, and then get a funny look.
Yeah.
But if they I will read the energy of the person before I answer and know whether or not they are open to hearing a short explanation. And if I will say energy worker, energy magic, and then offer a brief explanation if I feel that they're open to it. And if not, I would probably say I facilitate emotional release sessions and not offer anything else.
Yeah.
And usually maybe just get if they're not the right person to understand what that is, I'll just get in, okay.
Yeah.
And it would be done.
Yeah. Yeah, and fair enough. And but the beautiful thing is you've just planted a seed. Whether they've judged
Yes.
you in that moment and cut you off and think you're weird, doesn't matter because you've just placed the seed in their back pocket. If and when they decide they want to be open to these kinds of things, then they'll be like, "Oh my gosh, that one girl one time said that and it stuck with me," right? Because if they're even at all available to it or open to it or maybe beginning the path at all, then there will be something about it that kind of remains with them when you say that. And so your work is done, right? We don't need to over explain. And I know for me that's been something I have to really like not do, because you really want people to understand it. And I know for me, when I talk about my work or if I say energy work and I'm trying to explain it to somebody, I feel like many people have an idea, at least of like acupuncture, right? That the needles themselves
Right.
aren't magical needles. They're just awakening the energetics of the body so that the body can heal itself. Like that's the foundational work of acupuncture. And most people generally have at least heard of acupuncture, right? So I feel like that's, for me, has been a good segue to kind of, at least for anybody who has any concept of it at all, can start to understand, okay, so we're not using needles, it's literally me now, then I'm the needle. And we're facilitating the energy of the body to awaken the body's natural healing processes. But it's such an interesting life, because it's living out in this modern day, right? And so whether they're asking you, what you do for work or what have you been up to, and say you've just been through a whole alchemical transformational process and you like can't quite give them, and you've been deep in it, and it's totally, these things consume you, right? They take time and energy and all of what you have at certain periods, and so you're coming out of that still a little sort of rocked by it, and somebody asks what you've been up to, or someone you haven't talked to for a while, what have you been up to? And if they don't have a language, it's so interesting because it seems like we almost have to water ourselves down, like, oh, not too much, when really you've literally just gone through a total rebirth.
Yes.
But it's an interesting way of living, when you really start to open to all these things and live the truth of them and integrate them into your real life in real time, and then interact with other people and other humans, just keep you, I think, honest and correct on, like, I guess, just speaking in a way that people can understand. And also, like we've said, not needing to explain it too much or kind of overdo getting people to understand you, because many won't, on some level at the moment, they won't. And again, you can give them what you can give them in that time, and then the rest is up to their path. So I know as a healer, a big part of our work is to let go of needing to heal people, right? We can't heal everybody, and that's not why we're here. And we're just here to facilitate. I like the thought or term of just facilitating the awakening of humanity. And I think that we, to me, that's the true nature of the goddess, right? Or even the divine femininity is sort of the fortitude, the force field that facilitates the awakening of humanity. And so we're bringing her onto the earth in human form, and we all look different and do different things and believe different ways. And that's purposeful because she's totally multidimensional. There's hardly even a way, can't be like, she's this, I couldn't give you even a list of 10 things that she is, because she's all of it. Right.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Totally agree.
So how do you relate to the divine feminine, and what does that look like in your life?
Yes. So over the last several months, I have gotten a little more involved with using other terms, because I was seeing divine feminine and divine masculine getting, I think, honestly, a little watered down. And, there's like thousands of Instagrams that think that they're teaching on divine femininity. And so I started really feeling a call to talk with people about cultivating both energies within the body, regardless of gender. So many of us who are like, I am 100% woman, but I carry a lot of what I would call yang energy as well. So I have been talking more about, like, clearly I am living as a divine feminine sacred goddess, aspecting that within my own life. But I had felt a calling to talk with people about how we can cultivate the flow of both types of energy within the body and respect others doing the same. And how to, I guess, come to balance within the self. Because really, one thing that became clear to me is that there has to be like a balance within the self in order to meet that divine alchemical partner and come together in like a true committed loving respect and balance.
Yeah.
Like so much of the time, like I was seeing too many women thinking that they found their divine masculine
Yeah.
partner
Mhm.
and staying in like unhealthy or abusive relationships because of
Mhm.
this idea that they had found their twin flame or
Mhm.
the
Yeah.
divine masculine to their
Ah.
divine feminine. And so I felt a need to kind of speak on how we stay away from that thought, or
Mhm.
the, and that is an egregore that has been cultivated and enlarged to giant size by new age, and usually people who mean well but just don't yet have the knowledge with which to work from about that, in my opinion.
Mhm.
So what was the question? How does the divine feminine show up in my life?
Yeah, I think you just nailed
Yeah,
it, right? It's
yeah,
both to you. And I love that. I love that aspect. I think you're so spot on. And I think it's important to, not assign divine femininity to women, right? It's
right.
understanding the balance of energies within all of us. And um,
Yeah,
I guess I know for me, when I talk about and think about the divine feminine, it is also just to bring that balance so to the earth plane, right? Because to
yeah,
me, he is what's missing in everything. Ultimately, you know,
absolutely.
yeah. And
And
they
we
and
are that. We are the living like embodiment of
totally.
that, and we are bringing it.
Yes,
Um, every
100%.
every word, every breath, every step
Yes,
is bringing
100%.
it and cultivating it
Yeah.
here.
Yeah, so true. And it's such an interesting wonder to think about how this will go, right? What's going to happen? Because I feel like there's kind of a war at play here right now on the planet, and we're very much at a choice point for humanity, right? We could go a particular way that eventually and pretty quickly we are going to kill ourselves off, and that's a possibility given a certain trajectory, and another trajectory could be that we do loosen some of the masculine chokehold on the planet and soften a bit more into feminine, call it divine or not even, just but balancing
Yeah,
the energies on the planet
yeah,
altogether and generally. And so I do
absolutely.
think that, again, there's kind of a cohort of us who are specifically women who are
Mhm.
bringing that, and maybe women right now primarily and only because that's the best way that humanity can understand it. It's because
Yes.
we still do, most of society still does correlate womanhood with
With
femininity, and so it's
that.
put in a feminine body and a woman body, and let's do it that
Yes,
way. It is. I mean,
very much.
it's so necessary that she come in full force right now. I mean, literally right now, because
Yeah.
it's an interesting whatever's going on in the weird elites or whatever you want to call matrix, whatever. Do you have a term for that, by the way? Since I know you.
So the reason I don't like Matrix is because I feel like they implanted that intentionally as an inversion against the mother, against the feminine, because Matrix is the root word. It is mother. It means mother in Latin. Matrix,
Oh,
matrices, mater in German, and then it comes down into mother in English. So I had felt that there was like a correlation that they were trying to kind of like pervert the feminine or pervert the mother, which is why I don't use it. I use the phrase false overlay because
okay.
it's like the way I see it is they've created like a kind of a falseness, especially with like their news and and their media and their psyops to push a narrative
Yeah.
that is actually false.
Totally.
But
Yeah.
like if you walk outside, at least where I live, if you walk outside, most of the time everything's okay. Like
Yeah.
again, like yes, bad
Yeah.
things happen, but most of the time, like everything is okay, and there's an element of illusion to this. And I will say that my own like experiential knowledge is that like the spirit of the Christ before he left the earth, like what he did. And this is, I guess, the Christian mystic in me feels that he like busted a huge chasm within the false overlay that is like a way he like made a way for us that we are now coming forth with.
Totally. I so agree with that. And I know I personally totally resonate. I'm going to say Jesus just because that's,
Yeah,
what we're talking about, the
yeah.
idea. In fact, when you say that there's a truer name, is it Yeshua, or are you saying something even different than that?
I think it's any version of Yeshua,
Yeah.
Yahshua, Yehoshua.
Yeah.
I think
Okay.
all of those are closer.
Yeah. Yeah. I actually agree. Whenever I think of him, I term him Yeshua in my spirit. He just, that feels like more aligned with
Yeah.
his true essence. But, Jesus is whatever you want to, either way,
Yeah.
I mean, we're still talking about him in these conversations. Everybody's talking about him like he did something right, right? There's no question
Yeah.
about it. He did something right. He had a mission and he absolutely killed it. Mission complete.
Yes.
And he will live forever in that capacity because, of who he was and what he brought forward and the teachings that he left forever for us to find and remember and figure out and continue to evolve with and grow with. But you're so right that archetype, I think, is it, and it, even though plays heavily into the divine feminine, right? Because it's light, it's power, and it's divinity, and it's, his whole teaching was like, you guys can do what I do. He didn't put himself on a pedestal ever. He was just like, you guys, you're being crazy.
Yeah, he's like the embodiment of solar masculine consciousness, which, I mean, we have many men incarnate right now, women too, but we have many men incarnate as solar masculine consciousness who are awakening and like coming into this realization of like the light and the soul that they carry and hold.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, it's so true.
And
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I
he was
love what you
also like very
said.
balanced. I was sorry. He was like very balanced within the masculine and feminine energies as well.
Exactly. Yeah, 100%. And it's interesting also because then I'm sure you've studied Mary Magdalene and have gone down that rabbit hole. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Which, I mean, in the understanding of the true Mary Magdalene is that she also played a significant role in who he became. In fact, she, as an energy worker, facilitated much of his clearing and remembering so that he could, play his part, which is, of course, then she got tagged a prostitute. And, some argue. In fact, I was talking to a friend yesterday about this and asked him who it was. And he's like, oh, that was Jesus's wife. And I was like, wow, I'm just surprised even to hear someone say that, because she doesn't get any credit and any modern text at all. She's a negative, there's a negative connotation to her. And so to me, that's so symbolic of the lostness of the goddess power and nature and necessity on the planet. It's been lost since her, really, because she embodied everything that we're describing in the divine feminine and in terms of what we offer the planet and people and men specifically, and the men that we choose to exchange ourselves with, right? Like we do bring that total amplification. And I know, you and I both kind of talk about that in our work, but we have to be able to recognize that value. And I think that society, the inversion, we'll call it matrix, whatever. I like the term inversion because it is literally that too, right? It's literally just they've inverted everything. And in doing so, they've just totally reduced and lost the value of the woman. And because this society doesn't care about healing, or they don't care about, peace and the kind of natural tendencies and gifts of womanhood, even motherhood, I feel like just is in no way in its rightful throne in our society. Motherhood is like the number one job ultimately to me, as far as I'm concerned, and I'm not a mother yet, so
absolutely.
Great mothers change and run the world. It's so key to motherhood is so key to our planet. And so when I hear even women now, this new age feminism too, right, has come in and just kind of knocked motherhood and, even being a wife and other things just totally off of from their rightful place. And to me, this new age, even feminism, is coming from this inverted masculine place. And it's not even, proclaiming femininity. It's actually diminishing it in some ways when motherhood and these other sort of feminine qualities are totally lost in their conversations.
I agree completely. Absolutely.
Yeah. How do you feel about feminism in general, or what's your relationship to that?
I don't consider myself a feminist at all. I consider myself an advocate for women and equal rights, but I agree with you. I think I think like the origins of feminism would indicate that there was a ploy here to break up families. I like the whole women need to go to work it's not that women can't work. Obviously we can, but this, they like kind of injected into the collective consciousness this idea that we weren't equal unless we were working outside the home.
Totally.
And that is, I mean, like it created a generation, multiple generations of kids now who were like latchkey kids, or they would come home from school and nutrition tanked during the decades that moms were feeling like they had to work outside the home. And of course, it's not that moms can't work outside the home, and some absolutely have to. But the origins of it, I do not think were sincere. Though I know that there were very sincere, well-intentioned people who were and are involved with it. I don't feel like it's not something that I align with
Yeah.
in terms of like part of my personal, belief system.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Yeah.
totally agree. And it's unfortunate because, a feminine movement would be great. And, but the thing is, a true woman empowerment movement would not be seeking to make women like men, right? We would be seeking to reclaim the power of womanhood. And I think that's where this movement misses the mark. It doesn't seem to be doing that. In fact, they're reducing the woman's role in many ways, like you're saying, they're taking her out of the house, and again, they're like, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, I know as me and having my work that I do and my purpose is everything to me. So I would never knock that, obviously. But I completely agree that so many agendas that are in place now, and this being one of them, is trying to destabilize the family unit. And that to me is such a core thing that is being just totally constantly attacked and raided. And I think that's because a strong family unit builds strong people. And so if the inversion is trying to control people and maintain a sort of lower level, population, then destroying the family unit is going to do that every single time, right? So to have, I think the reclamation is strong family units and powerful mothers and all of us owning our own roles and not looking to be equal to men or like men in any way, just ourselves, and be understood and respected in who we are and what we bring, our own spiritual gifts and the ways that we show up in the world as women. Like that's what we should be championing in any woman movement, is what women do. It seems pretty straightforward, but I guess not.
I totally agree. Yeah, there's just too much destabilization, I think, has been a goal
Yeah.
for the ones that don't want to see us like expand into more consciousness and soul evolve. Yeah.
Totally.
Yep.
Yeah. And so does the term new paradigm, is that one you use, and is that something you, um,
Yeah, like
yeah.
moving into a new paradigm or creating our own
Mhm.
paradigm. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think about that. I use that.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that term because it's not even like, we're not even talking like a new society. We're talking about a whole new way of doing things, right?
Yes.
That's why paradigm is like, we're taking it out of even what you think anything society is right now. And we're going to totally build a brand new structure around how we exist and how we live our lives and what we prioritize and all of that, and I think any of us doing this work are doing that, right? And because right now the American empire is collapsing. I think it's pretty clear we're on that path. And I mean, I personally am not mad at it because I think it's literally time, but also figuratively time, because it is the pinnacle of the inversion, right? America, if we're being honest, American culture is very much the pinnacle of the inversion. And so, I think the past couple of years has very much destabilized many of their infrastructures, be it science and education and all the things that the inversion holds high. And now we're kind of seeing through, right, the falsehoods that they're built on top of. And a lot of it has started to fall away. And it's like now the American empire is just kind of imploding, on itself. And then while that happens, we're like, kind of saw this coming. And also we're already building the new, so it doesn't even affect us at all.
Yeah, so it's the fall of New Atlantis, but it wasn't really new. They just like moved the headquarters to the U.S. after like the original Atlantis. It's like the whole the energy that was involved in the creation of the country is the same that was
Totally.
present at that time.
Yeah. Which is also interesting though, because I feel like they're also simultaneous to you and I building new paradigm. There's also a very much a tech new Atlantis vibe trying to come up too, right? I mean, AI, they're trying to replace people with AI pretty quickly. And to me, that's so Atlantis, such Atlantis vibes.
Yeah. It's like there's going to be a couple of paths diverge and people are going to be presented with an option. And I almost like the way I see it is they're almost going to like exist parallel to one another and everybody is going to have to make a choice, I think.
Yep.
And,
Yeah, I
yeah.
love it. And gosh, I could talk to you forever. But as
Mm.
we think about moving forward in solutions, and when you work in your work with people, what advice would you give for people who are maybe even kind of new to this world, or can hear what we're saying but don't really know how to like apply themselves to it? What would you? How would you encourage people to, relate and find their way?
Yes. So I wind up communicating with a lot of people who are in fear about everything that's been going on
Yeah.
since 2020, or even shortly before 2020. So my biggest advice is to not live in fear, to not
Yeah.
give in to any sort of fear. um, if there are people that are at the very beginning of this process, it is absolutely turn off the TV, no news, and start going through your social media accounts and muting terms that are just going to be upsetting to you. It doesn't benefit. So then the next piece is you work on yourself and on your body. You stay in your body and you stay very physically grounded within your tangible physical reality, and you work on being the best you for yourself and your loved ones that you can be. What's going on out there doesn't it does matter, but it doesn't matter to you right now yet, because you're not in a place in which you can,
Yeah.
in which you have capacity to hold space for that. So
Totally.
you focus on yourself and do lots of body work
Yeah.
in order to begin the expansion of consciousness, and soul evolution too is all involved with this as
Yeah.
well.
Love it. Love it. Beautiful, beautifully said, beautiful work. I'm so, so glad we could make this happen. I would love to have you back sometime, because I feel like there's a part
Yes.
two, like that could come of this. But so always have resonated with you so much on Twitter, and just your words, and you're so willing to challenge things and call things out, which I think is so important. And kudos to you, because I myself, sometimes I'm hard on myself. I don't do more of that. But all of it, I really, really respect you so much. I respect your work so much. I see you. I totally understand what you're doing and why you're here. And I have just so much encouragement to please keep going and keep using your voice, and just keep becoming more powerful, keep becoming more yourself, and as a mother with 4 children, like, absolutely, absolutely killing it, Sarah. So thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. Yeah,
Wow.
likewise. I'm so glad
Thank
you're
you.
here. I'm glad you asked me on. You do amazing work. I'm
Thank
so happy
you.
we connected a couple years ago on Twitter,
Yeah.
and I love all your words.
Thank
You
you.
write these collective messages that resonate with so many people,
Thank
and it's
you.
amazing. Yeah, I'd love to
Thank
come back
you.
sometime. Be
Yeah,
awesome.
let's do it. So in the meantime, tell the people where to find you on socials.
Okay, so I am on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and Blue Sky as at Sarah Descending. I have a backup account on Twitter that is very easily found by following the main one, Inward Descent 8. And then I am on Facebook under my full name. I'm thinking about starting a business page there as well. But I can be reached by email, sarahdescending@outlook.com, for
Cool.
information about sessions.
Perfect,
So,
Sarah. Thank you so much for your time, my love. Thank you. Thank you. It's
yeah,
really, really an honor to have you on. I look forward to having you back sometime. We're making more magic or collaboration in
awesome.
the future.
Awesome.
Okay.
I'm here for it. Thank you. All
Beautiful. Talk to you soon, dear.
right.
Bye.
Bye.